In the 1960s, the Soviet Union unveiled the Tu-142 Bear, a plane so massive and loud that it defied the laws of stealth. Its four massive engines drove contra-rotating propellers, two sets of blades spinning in opposite directions on a single shaft. These tips moved faster than the speed of sound, creating a continuous, bone-shaking sonic boom that NATO submarine crews claimed they could actually hear through their hulls while submerged hundreds of feet underwater. This was the loudest aircraft ever built, a screaming giant designed to prowl the oceans for weeks at a time. It was a physical manifestation of Soviet power, an illegal noise machine that made every coastline it approached tremble.
While the noise was terrifying, the Bear J variant carried a secret that was even more ominous. Tucked inside its fuselage was a massive winch holding a miles-long copper cable. When the plane reached its station over the deep ocean, it would unspool this forbidden wire, a 5-mile-long antenna that trailed behind the plane like a giant tail. This wire allowed the Soviets to use very low-frequency radio waves, which are the only signals capable of penetrating deep into the ocean to reach nuclear ballistic missile submarines. The Bear J was a floating dead man's switch. If Moscow was leveled in a first strike, this plane would be the only thing left to broadcast the illegal codes for a retaliatory nuclear apocalypse from the sky. The Tu-142 Bear J was a triumph of Soviet engineering, but for the men inside, it was a slow-motion execution. While the world marveled at its size and NATO commanders tracked its thunderous path across the Atlantic, a silent crisis was unfolding within the pressurized aluminum tube of the fuselage. The very thing that made the Bear J a doomsday radio, those massive contra-rotating propellers, was slowly destroying the crews tasked with flying it. The noise inside a Bear J wasn't just loud, it was illegal by any modern occupational health standard. Because the propeller tips moved at Mach 1.1, they created a continuous chain of sonic booms. Inside the cockpit, the sound level consistently hovered around 110 to 120 decibels, equivalent to standing next to a chainsaw for 16 hours straight. But it wasn't the sound you could hear that was the most dangerous. It was the infrasound, the low-frequency vibrations you could only feel in your marrow. Soviet flight doctors began noticing a pattern among veteran Tu-142 pilots that they eventually labeled vibration sickness. This wasn't just a headache or a ringing in the ears. The specific frequency of the Bear J's engines resonated with the natural frequency of the human body's internal organs. At cruise speed, the plane didn't just shake, it hummed at a pitch that caused the liver, the lungs, and the heart to vibrate against the rib cage. Pilots reported a terrifying phenomenon where their vision would blur because their eyeballs were literally vibrating in their sockets, making it impossible to read the analog dials during critical landing maneuvers. The Soviet High Command, obsessed with maintaining the dead man switch capability of the VLF antenna, classified these medical reports as state secrets. Admitting the plane was killing its crew meant admitting a flaw in their ultimate doomsday weapon. So the pilots were pushed harder. They were given cocktails of stimulants to keep them awake through the 16-hour patrols, and told that the chronic joint pain, the digestive hemorrhaging, and the permanent brain fog were simply the price of serving the motherland. Inside the Bear J, the environment was a claustrophobic nightmare.
Unlike American bombers of the era, which had some concessions for crew comfort, the Tu-142 was a maze of cold steel, exposed wiring, and the massive winch for the 5-mile-long antenna. There was no room to stretch, and the heat from the massive radio transmitters made the cabin swelter, while the vibration made every surface feel like a live wire. Navigators would often lose their sense of balance entirely as a result of the constant rhythmic pounding destroying the delicate hair cells in the inner ear. Many of these men would return from a single mission and find themselves unable to walk a straight line for days. The illegal nature of this aircraft extended to how the Soviets handled the casualties. When a pilot became too sick to fly, when his kidneys began to fail from the constant mechanical trauma, he wasn't given a medical discharge. He was quietly reassigned to remote ground stations, away from the eyes of the public and the Western press. The Bear J remained the screaming giant of the skies, but it was a machine that demanded a human sacrifice for every hour of flight time. As the Cold War wound down, the true cost of the Tu-142 started to leak out. Declassified documents and testimonials from former crew members painted a picture of a doomsday radio that was as much a threat to its operators as it was to the enemy. Even today, the few remaining Tu-142s in service are viewed with a mix of awe and dread. They are the last of the brute force era of aviation, an age where the laws of physics and human biology were secondary to the need for a nuclear signal that could reach the bottom of the world. The Bear J stands as a monument to a terrifying realization that the most powerful communication tool ever built was so violent that it broke the very people who operated it. It was a radio station for the end of the world, and for the men inside, the end of the world was happening every time those 8 massive blades began to spin.